Okay, wonderful. Hey, we are back. We're going to finish this chapter real quick. I won't tell a story. So as you're working on your projects for which you all finessed me for, that's why we're not in the lab today. Chapter 3, Unit 1 is all about, promoting culture, preserving culture, particularly when you have a globalizing world, right? Like, how do you keep your individual or your collective identity, right? How many of you celebrate your culture from like your ancestors, right? Because like a lot of you from Europe, right? So like, you do? Okay. What's your background?
I'm Scottish.
You're Scottish. Do you celebrate a little bit of Scottish stuff?
Like St. Patrick's.
Oh, you guys actually do some legit stuff on St. Patrick's Day. Okay. Do you guys wear kilts?
No, I would never wear.
Come on, man. You're Scottish.
I wear green.
You wear green. Excellent. Okay. Anyone else? Africa Day? There's an Africa Day? What? Interesting. Don't you kids find it strange, like Africa is just referred to like one place? It's like, man, there's like 30 countries.
Yeah,
What?
it's the whole Africa. It's called Africa Day, so it's like in all African countries. And we like wear our
Oh, this is in Africa. Okay.
But we still do it here with my mom.
Okay. Well, what day is Africa Day?
25th of March.
25th of March. Okay, remind me. I'll wear my Ghana clothes. It'll be sick.
I've never seen Ghana clothes before.
Okay, March 25th. I'll wear them. Are you gonna dress up?
Probably.
You should. You and me, both of us. Okay. It'll be sick. All right. Anyone else? Culture? None of you? Come on. We just watch TikTok and Snapchat people?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you deal with that, right? Because like, if everybody's doing the same thing, it's a little weird, right? It's kind of like this story in the Bible. This one right there, right? That's the Tower of Babel. Everybody spoke the same language. They're all the same people. There was no diversity, right? But then their mistake was they tried like building a big tower up to God, and then God struck them down. Right? Okay. So maybe there's like, and like how that relates to social studies is like, so when like the communists come and take over, like they kind of try to uniform everything, right? And people will resist, right? So it's like, look at all the diversity of different clothing we're wearing, right? Different colors of clothing. Imagine if the government was like, okay, you can only wear, let's pick 3 colors. What 3 colors clothing? Red, black, and white. Okay, red, black, and white. Those are the 3 colors. So I'm color coded right now, right? Like I have a black shirt. Okay, who's got red? No one's got red.
This is red.
Jackson got red.
No, that's not red. That's not red either. That's like a purplish.
This is red.
Oh, look, you're good.
This is red.
Red, black, white. Okay. Right. Too much uniformity is a problem, right? When everyone's the same, there's no difference of ideas, right? You disagree sometimes. And in what scenarios is it a good thing?
School and uniforms.
School uniforms. That's not bad. Well, so hold on.
Like, there's
Look at this
two
conversation.
points.
Yeah, I don't necessarily mean uniforms, like a particular outfit, but even then, right? That's a good argument for the opposite, right? Like imagine you're playing a sports game. So imagine you're playing hockey and everyone's wearing a different jersey. How do you understand what's going on? Everyone's doing a different jersey, right? But if all 10 people, or 12 with the goalies, if all 12 of them are wearing the same jersey, well, that's not a game, that's just a practice, right? So a small team, right? So you want like a healthy amount of diversity, right? And that's kind of what this chapter is all about, right? Like how do you protect and preserve what's already existing? How do you promote it? Okay. Now it is kind of nice as an English language speaker, like you can go to all over the world. Okay, you're about to get roasted in another video. I told you to put the Rubik's Cube away. Did you even take your notes?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so in Canada, through the CBC, through the CRTC, we don't get a choice, but the Canadian government attempts to promote Canadian culture and content. Okay, part of that is Indigenous languages. Okay, and here's an example of this movie. It's called Edge of the Knife. I've tried finding a copy of this film. It's very hard. Okay, there were some online websites that asked for your credit card, and you know, they're not Amazon, so I didn't trust them. Right? It was also expensive. I think the last time I looked, it was like $35 for this movie. But take a look at this. So
Better be a good movie.
honestly, the trailer looked pretty sick.
Get it?
It looked pretty
Watch
intense.
it.
Have you
We
seen
should
the
watch
trailer?
it.
I don't know where to find it. I don't even know where to bootleg it.
Isn't there
Oh,
news
make
guys
it
just
go
watch
find
the
it.
trailer
YouTube.
right now?
We can look at the trailer when we're done the chapter, right? We only got a couple slides left. But so this film, the CBC, you know, they kind of promoted and they gave funding for this film. It's made in a language only 20 people can speak. Okay. 7.8 billion people in the world, only 20 can speak this language.
Then why would you
Why would you
watch
wanna
it? Is it spoken in English?
No, it's spoken. It's so it's kind of written in English. It was filmed in the Haida language. Do you know where Haida peoples are from?
I don't even know what
Haida
Haida
Gwaii,
is.
right? That's like West Coast, BC.
Oh.
Right. The Haida people have some very beautiful art. Honestly, if you search this name, go Haida art on Google, you'll find some beautiful imagery and art. It's very nice. I don't know how their language sounds because I've never seen this film. Okay? So they actually, I'll take a question first.
How, so, it's like all 20 people that speak the language make the movie. It's like, only 20 people that speak it. There's like 5 people that-
So they took elders and helped translate the English words that they wanted, the kind of the script they wanted into that language and help with that process. So the fascinating thing is that this movie then serves as like a codex. You understand what this is? Codex?
Yeah.
Right? It encodes the language into it, right? So if somebody wanted to know how this language is spoken. What's going on over here? Like sending notes but verbally and loudly, not for us to hear. Camera probably heard it. Okay, so they encoded the language into this movie, right? And so it kind of serves as two purposes. So if someone ever wants to learn how to speak the Haida language, you know, this is like their textbook, perhaps, right? But this is an attempt to preserve an indigenous language. Okay? So of the 74, also I wrote this a couple of years ago. It could be less. Of the 7,100 languages spoken, half are considered extremely endangered and probably won't survive the end of the century. And you know, so this is complicated. So Thomas Sowell, he has this argument. You know, Thomas Sowell's up there, handsome black guy. Okay? He says part of the challenges that Africa faces economically, and many countries actually, some of their challenges that they face is that they have so many different small little dialects. Do you know what a dialect is? You understand? It's like a difference in speaking. So they might be speaking a different, same language, but each group has its own dialect. So they use slightly different words, they sound a bit different, right? Not necessarily the same as an accent, right? Although I'm sure you could go to like parts of Scotland, parts of like Northern England and not understand what these people are speaking, despite the fact that they're speaking English. And that's kind of the problem, right? Like imagine you go to, what's a province we don't like, kids? Quebec, right? Well, perfect. They speak a different language, right? Completely. But imagine the. I love how there's no hesitation at all with your answer. Imagine you go to Quebec, you speak to the people who are speaking there in English, and you don't understand what they're saying because their dialect is slightly different. Okay. So you kids all live in Leduc. Some of you live slightly outside of Leduc. I live in Edmonton. Imagine if you went to Edmonton and we couldn't communicate because our dialect was slightly different. Do you understand how that would make life complicated? Imagine if there was like 20 to 50 to 100 different dialects within Canada. So if you went to a particular small town, like let's say you went to the small town of Calgary, right? And they speak slightly differently. You don't really understand what they're saying. Do you understand how that complicates life? Right? How are you supposed to, trade with those people? This is kind of what Thomas Sowell says. That there's so many dialects in Africa. It's like, okay, if you were traveling through it and trying to communicate with people, you would actually have a very hard time communicating with people, even though they live in the same country. Like someone 200 kilometers away might speak something entirely different to you, right? And so when there's too much diversity, it makes things complicated. But when there's not enough diversity, it's too uniform. Everyone's the same. You can just leave your test there and then crawl on back over to your desk, okay? So part of what the CBC does, not necessarily CBC, part of what the Canadian government is attempting to do is still protect and preserve these languages, right? So perhaps, taxpayer dollars go to saving this, okay? All this is the CRTC slides that we were supposed to do before we started the project. Finally, we get to them, okay? The CRTC stands for Canadian Radio and Television Commission. It's an independent public authority, so they are, from my understanding, they are funded by the government. Okay, but they're not necessarily the government itself. It regulates and promotes Canadian culture in the media, so by regulating it kind of dictates what is and isn't Canadian content, right? So all of you should have looked at your project and noticed that it's actually significantly different from last year's project, right? Because this one, you actually have to look at the Canadian content requirements. What requirements, what regulations is the CRT set up for content to be considered Canadian and promoting Canadian culture, right? So that has to do with the people behind the camera and the people in front of the camera. Who are you hiring? I don't know if there's any regulation on where you do the filming, but who does the filming, who writes the script, all that stuff is part of the Canadian content process. And they kind of do that through CanCon, so that was the website or the rules that you kids are supposed to look at. Okay. Additionally, so they also regulate how much time on that network they spend airing Canadian content. And I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts on this overall? How many of you are aware of what Canadian content is available to you? Anyone? Anyone know any shows, Canadian shows?